The story kicks off in the year 1430, when Earth was being invaded. At first, humanity thought they were angels and started worshipping them, but the demons immediately figured out they were enemies and went into combat mode. Over time, humans realized threat these creatures posed and teamed up with the demons, their old rivals, to fight together. From there, the war intensified, with humans joining forces against the celestial invaders in a desperate battle. It was an intense fight, but with the two races united, everything was heading towards a positive outcome, and seeing all of this was Jean, a holy knight. After watching all the enemies fall, she wonders if they really managed to defeat every single one that showed up. Suddenly, a colossal portal materializes behind her. It makes the entire army of humans and demons look like ants before its sheer size. Right after, the gate begins to open slowly and an intense light escapes from within. Jane is left clueless about what's happening and how that thing even appeared there, and from inside the gate, a giant hand emerges, and something starts to come out. Seeing that, all the warriors are terrified, and the knight can barely believe what's about to happen. Amidst the general despair, a being even more monstrous and imposing than the others emerges from the portal, looking down on them all as if they were insects. With the appearance of that creature, all the soldiers panic and start running for their lives, and a terrified Jean says she's never seen anything that huge. The monster then slams its fist into the ground, taking out several soldiers at once, and Jane is the only one who doesn't move, holding her ground even after that devastating attack. At that moment, the creature reveals a wicked smile, showing it's enjoying the chaos. With that, the other warriors lose all hope and accept that this is the end for them. However, Jane doesn't give up and grips the hilt of her sword with determination, and she yells to everyone that the battle isn't over yet, and that the Demon King is on his way to help them. Her words reignite the flame of hope in one of the demons, who repeats that they need to hold on until their king arrives. This also motivates the human soldiers, who ready themselves to fight again, and so, everyone charges toward the enemy with renewed morale. The creature then starts gathering an absurd amount of energy, and realizing the monster is about to counterattack, Jane screams for everyone to run. However, it was too late, and the celestial being fires a powerful beam of light. The attack is so overwhelming that it completely swallows the army of humans and demons in the blink of an eye, and the knight can only wait for her end, unable to do a thing. Then an insane explosion goes off. Unexpectedly, the X stopped just in time by a mysterious figure who appears out of nowhere. The celestial creature gets ticked off that its attack was interrupted, and Jean, who until then had already accepted her fate, lifts her head confused, not understanding what had just happened. She then realizes that a single person managed to stop all that power, and upon seeing who the savior is, the knight breaks into a smile of relief, because it was Dantirio, the great and powerful Demon King, and he says that everyone held on tight until he got there, and that they should leave the rest to him, because the real fight was just getting started. Jane smiles and says he finally showed up, but complains that he took his sweet time. Dantirio grins, seeing he managed to arrive in time, and the human soldiers are also relieved, with one of them commenting that even though it's weird to rely on a demon, he's happy to have been saved. Meanwhile, the demons celebrate the arrival of their lord, and Dantirio then flies towards the creature. The celestial monster just watches Dantirio approach without showing any reaction. Filled with rage, the Demon King promises he'll make the enemy pay dearly for hurting his comrades. So, he concentrates a large amount of dark energy, preparing for combat, and unleashes his power towards the creature. The celestial being wasn't expecting that speed, and is surprised by the demon's strength. Seizing the opening, the Demon King continues his offensive, giving the enemy no time to react. With that, he delivers a series of attacks so fast that the giant is completely lost. The soldiers watching the fight are impressed by Dantirio's power as he's wiping the floor with the creature. Facing the beatdown he's taking, the giant monster falls to its knees. However, it doesn't give up and begins to undergo a bizarre transformation, increasing its power. The creature seems to be in immense pain during the process, grabbing its own head tightly. The giant continues to writhe as its body changes shape in a grotesque way. Dantirio just watches the change with a serious expression, showing no fear. After finishing its transformation, the celestial being attacks with a devastating punch to the ground. Jane gets worried about the enemy's new form and screams Dantirio's name in desperation. However, the creature is fast and manages to grab Dantirio with its giant hand. The Demon King admits the enemy isn't weak, but he hasn't given up yet. Because of this, he begins to concentrate a large amount of dark energy in his hands, and with a shout, he unleashes all his power at once. The blast of energy hits the giant's hand dead, on forcing it to release the demon. Both of them scream in pain and effort in an unbelievable power struggle. The celestial being grinds its teeth as Dantirio's dark energy consumes it. Faced with this situation, the monster decides to use its strongest ability and starts gathering a golden light. The Demon King watches his opponent prepare an attack that illuminates the entire sky. Right after, the creature dives at high speed towards Dantirio and fires an overwhelming blast of energy. Dantirio is hit head-on by the attack and screams in pain as he's swallowed by the light. The explosion is so massive it covers the entire battlefield. Jane and the the soldiers watch the scene, horrified, unable to do anything. The knight then yells for everyone to get down and protect themselves from the shockwave. A colossal explosion of light devastates the entire battlefield. Amidst the smoke and dust, Jane closes her eyes, shielding herself from the impact. As the dust begins to settle, she opens her eyes to see the result of that absurd power. Faced with the situation, the celestial being is confused when it realizes its attack was blocked by a mysterious purple barrier. Inside the protection, the soldiers and demons are safe, and one of them comments that if it weren't for that, they all would have been toast. The power of the attack was so great that it opened a gigantic crater in the ground. The knight then gets up and, worried about the demon king, wonders what happened to him. Suddenly, Dantirio appears behind the enemy, who doesn't understand how he survived. The demon king comments that the hit wasn't bad, but it's still not enough to defeat him. The celestial monster gives a malicious grin and starts concentrating a sphere of dark energy in its chest. In a bizarre move, the sphere passes through the creature's own body, surprising everyone. Dantirio is confused by his opponent's action and wonders what he's plotting. Meanwhile, Jean, on the ground, notices the giant is sweating and is surprised by it. The creature then screams in pain and prepares for a new attack with even more power. And so, the celestial being gathers an absurd amount of golden energy, ready for the next round. Giant is in shock at the speed of the monster's second attack, and Dantirio also seems concerned about the situation. The celestial giant accumulates an insane amount of energy, and everyone knows that if it's not stopped, the entire world will be destroyed. Faced with imminent danger, Dantirio remains calm and makes a difficult decision. And so, he calls out to Jean, who is surprised to hear her name. The worried knight asks if Dantirio is okay, as the situation looks desperate. The demon king positions himself between the monster and the army, preparing for what's to come. From there, he begins to speak, telling everyone to listen very carefully. His words leave Jean and the other soldiers with expressions of sadness and concern. Dantirio then makes one last request to the knight, asking her to take care of the humans and demons. Jean understands what he's planning to do and is shocked by his sacrifice. Suddenly, a purple energy envelops the knight and starts lifting her off the ground. Meanwhile, Dantirio concentrates all his power, preparing for the final confrontation. The same energy surrounds all the other soldiers and demons, who don't understand what's happening. The demon king is using his last ounce of strength to teleport everyone to safety. Realizing his sacrificial plan, Jane becomes desperate and tries to stop Dantirio, but it's too late. Alone on the battlefield, Dantirio prepares for his final move. He never imagined he'd have to use this technique, but now he has no other choice. A powerful white energy begins to emanate from his body as a magic circle forms beneath his feet. Even while being teleported away, Jane desperately screams for him to stop. With tears in her eyes, she declares she'll stay with him until the end, and Dantirio hears her last words. He then remembers it because of her that he started wanting to protect humanity too. From there, the demon king unleashes all his power in a final sacrifice to save the world. In his last moments, he yells to Jean that he hopes to meet her again in another life. The knight screams the name of her beloved as he is consumed by a blinding light. They lock eyes one last time, and Dantirio says that if they meet again, Jane completes the thought in her mind, promising that next time, things would be different. A final image of the demon king appears amidst the intense light. The knight closes her eyes and cries, accepting her companion's sacrifice. From space, a colossal energy explosion is seen on the Earth's surface. Soon after, Dantirio's lifeless body falls slowly into the darkness. However, Dantirio's body is enveloped in a golden light as it falls. From there, the light transports him to a completely different and modern world. The scene cuts to a hospital room where a young man is lying in a bed. Slowly, the young man begins to awaken from his deep sleep, and when he opens his eyes, we realize that Dantirio has been reincarnated in that body. Startled, he sits up in bed, not understanding where he is or what happened. Our protagonist looks at his new hands and wonders if his sacrifice worked. His expression is one of pure confusion as he tries to process his new reality. He then sees a reflection of his former self and questions why he was reincarnated as a human. The place seems to be some kind of advanced school or training center. Now in the body of Mizukami Deya, the former demon king gets up and goes to the window. Looking at the urban landscape, he wonders if the threat of the angels is finally over. To better understand the situation, he decides to access the memories of the body's original owner. With that, he sees flashes of a happy life with a loving family and joyful moments. However, the last memory he finds is of the young man standing before his parents' funeral. The young Deya was crying desperately over the loss of his parents, feeling immense pain. To make matters worse, he was also getting bullied and was constantly beaten up by his classmates. The aggressors showed no mercy and attacked him for no reason, just for fun. Led by a red-haired boy with a cruel smile, they amused themselves with the young man's suffering. Reaching his limit and with no hope left, Deya decides to take a mysterious pill. As soon as he swallows it, an intense light explodes from his body. The power is so overwhelming that the young man can't control it and screams in pain. Soon after, he collapses on the floor, completely exhausted, and this is the last memory our protagonist protagonist sees. Back in the present, our protagonist's eyes glow blue as he processes everything he's discovered. He then looks at his hands, reflecting on the tragic life of the body's former owner. The scene then shifts to a bustling, peaceful city, showing the new world he's been reincarnated into. Our protagonist, now in different clothes, seems irritated about something. He walks through the streets, observing how everything seems calm and normal in this place. However, something catches his attention and shatters the peaceful moment. He sees the same bullies from Daya's memories, tormenting another defenseless student. The leader of the bullies, the same red-haired boy from the memories, displays a cruel smile as he intimidates his new victim. Our protagonist immediately recognizes the aggressor's face, and a familiar anger begins to build inside him. Meanwhile, the bully yells at the defenseless boy not to dare fight back, making it clear who's in charge. The poor student is already on the ground, with no strength to react to the group's attacks. One of the goons kicks the guy on the ground, commenting on the brutality of the situation with a mocking tone. His buddies agree, and one of them says that with Daya gone, they needed a new punching bag. So, Yamazaki, the group's leader, grabs the victim by the collar and asks if he's trying to be brave. However, as he prepares to throw a punch, his wrist is grabbed with surprising force. To everyone's shock, it was Mizukami Daya, who had appeared out of nowhere to intervene. Yamazaki gets furious and tries to pull away but realizes he can't move his arm because of our protagonist's absurd strength. Effortlessly, our protagonist shoves the bully back with a simple flick of his hand. The leader of the aggressors stumbles backward, completely shocked by his former victim's sudden strength. Taking advantage of the confusion, the student who was getting beaten up gets to his feet and runs off in a panic. Our MC then faces Yamazaki and coldly asks if he was the one who cornered the old Mizukami Daya. The bully is confused by the question and his former victim's attitude, asking if he isn't Mizukami himself. With a confident smirk, our MC says he's wrong and introduces himself as the Demon King Dantirio. Faced with that revelation, Yamazaki is left completely speechless and doesn't understand a thing. Soon after, he and his goons burst out laughing, finding the declaration ridiculous and asking who the heck Dantirio is. The former Demon King is genuinely confused, wondering if his name wasn't passed down to future generations. Yamazaki then stops laughing and, with a mocking smile, asks if the protagonist nearly bit the dust and ended up going crazy. With that, the aggressor decides it's time to put the guy in his place and lunges at him. He then leaps into the air and starts gathering a luminous energy around him, preparing to attack. From there, he yells for the protagonist not to get cocky, just because he's Mizukami, and fires a powerful energy blast directly at him. However, our protagonist deflects the attack with extreme ease, using only one of his hands. The blast hits the wall right behind him, and the former Demon King seems to be calmly analyzing the situation. Yamazaki's jaw drops, completely in shock, unable to believe what just happened. Our MC then comments with disdain that the attack was flashy, but had no power behind it. Suddenly, a female voice shouts at them from a distance, breaking up the fight. It was Sakuraba Asahi, a classmate of theirs, who seems pretty ticked off about the whole commotion. With Asahi's arrival, the bullies are surprised and wonder what the top student in the class is doing there. The girl then approaches the group with a serious expression, completely ignoring our protagonist's presence. She glares at Yamazaki and says if he has time to act like an idiot, he should use it to train more. The aggressor gets furious at the comment and yells at her to stay out of business that isn't hers. Asahi just sighs dismissively, showing she's not the least bit intimidated by his attitude. And so, she turns to our protagonist and tells him to step aside because she'll handle the situation herself. However, the former Demon King gently pushes her hand away, showing he doesn't need help. He thanks her for her kindness but states that this matter is his business. Since the bully has a score to settle with him, Asahi is completely confused by the guy's attitude and doesn't understand where all this confidence is coming from. Yamazaki then gets their attention and says he also has a score to settle with the protagonist. Full of rage, the aggressor accepts the challenge and prepares for the fight, calling the guy trash. Right after, he charges forward, yelling for the protagonist to get ready to have a bone or two broken. The punch flies straight for our protagonist's face, but he dodges it with ease, and then grabs the guy's arm, and with a single motion, he throws Yamazaki into the sky as if he weighed nothing, leaving Asahi in shock at the display of strength. Asahi is dumbfounded by our protagonist's unbelievable strength and can't believe what she just saw. Yamazaki's goons run to help their leader, who just hit the ground hard. Still on the ground, the aggressor asks what the protagonist is doing and can't understand the sudden change in attitude. He then yells for his friends to get the guy and finish him off once and for all. One of the bullies with purple hair decides to take the initiative and concentrates a strange energy in his hand. With a battle cry, he fires a powerful attack towards the former Demon King. Asahi senses the danger and yells for the protagonist to watch out for the blow. An energy explosion occurs, kicking up a cloud of dust and obscuring everyone's vision. The group of aggressors celebrates the attack, thinking they finally defeated the guy. Yamazaki looks at the scene with an expression of both anger and surprise. However, when the dust settles, our protagonist is standing in the same spot, completely unharmed. harmed. With a mocking smirk, he asks if that was some kind of child's play, and shows that the attack didn't even tickle. The goons panic, unable to believe their strongest attack was useless. Yamazaki is also shocked and realizes this is no longer the same Mizukami he used to torment. Asahi watches the scene impressed, and thinks about how the protagonist managed to block a magic spell with his bare hands without using any defense. With his eyes glowing with a sinister purple energy, our protagonist says he's going to show them something. With a malicious grin, he declares he's going to teach them how to use real magic. Faced with that menacing aura, one of the goons panics and warns Yamazaki that the situation is getting dangerous. The leader of the aggressors ignores the warning and grinds his teeth in anger, refusing to be intimidated. He can't accept that he's getting beaten by someone like Mizukami and prepares to attack again. With a yell of rage, he charges at the protagonist, determined to end this humiliation. And so, he runs towards the former Demon King as the guy creates a sphere of dark energy. The protagonist's eyes glow intensely, revealing all his power and determination. He then remembers the suffering of the old Dea, being constantly beaten and humiliated. The young man would beg for them to stop, but the bullies showed no compassion. Yamazaki would just laugh at the situation and mockingly tell the guy to get used to it. He even declared with a psychopathic smile that the young man would be his punching bag for the rest of his life. These memories fill our protagonist with a cold rage, and he calls the aggressor a punk with contempt. When Yamazaki gets close enough to attack, our protagonist hits him in the chest with the sphere of dark energy. The bully has an expression of pure shock and pain as he's hit head-on by the overwhelming power. The former Demon King extends his hand with a serious expression, ready for anything. Asahi and the other bullies are completely shocked by the scene and can't believe our protagonist's power. Yamazaki falls to the ground, defeated, and his goons rush to help him, not understanding what happened. Terrified, they scream that the protagonist is a monster and run away in fear. With a sigh of contempt, our protagonist thinks that was nothing compared to the pain the real Daya suffered. Asahi approaches and comments that she's never seen a magic circle like that before, showing she's impressed. She then looks at him with curiosity and asks who he really is, since his strength isn't normal. The former Demon King turns to her and asks if the question is about him. With all the seriousness in the world, he replies that he is the Demon King Dantirio. The girl has an expression of total confusion and can't believe what she just heard. She repeats his words in disbelief, and our protagonist confirms, explaining that some things happened and now he's in this form. Asahi continues to stare at the guy with suspicion, trying to figure out if he's telling the truth or just joking. For a moment, the image of Jean, the former holy knight, flashes in his mind, and the protagonist notices a resemblance between the two. Suddenly, the former Demon King's eyes widen as he senses a familiar and terrifying presence. From the top of a nearby building, a creature with angel wings observes them from afar, ready to attack. The creature with black wings lands on the rooftop with a completely menacing aura. Faced with that sudden appearance, our protagonist and Asahi immediately get into a combat stance. However, the angelic being simply vanishes into thin air, and only a few of its white feathers fall slowly from the sky. The two are left completely confused by what happened and can't understand where the enemy went. And so, the scene shifts to the Angel Suppression Team Training School. In this place, young people from all over the country with high levels of magical power gather, and their main goal is to learn the skills necessary to fight against angels and protect humanity. We see all the students gathered in a large gym, awaiting instructions from their teacher. The instructor explains that the results of the power measurement they are about to take will directly impact their grades and also their enlistment in the official team. In the midst of the crowd, Asahi reflects on how she let the protagonist slip away the day before, but she is completely determined to uncover the secret behind the guy's absurd strength. Suddenly, Yamazaki shoves the girl aside rudely and yells that he's number one, so he's going first. As he passes, the bully even bumps our protagonist with his shoulder, giving him a look full of contempt. The aggressor then positions himself in the center of the magic measurement circle with an air of superiority. With a shout, he begins to concentrate to show off all his power and prove he's the strongest in the class. The machine then displays the result, and Yamazaki's score is 1006. Faced with that impressive result, all the other students are jaw-dropped, as this is the first time anyone other than Asahi has achieved a 4-digit score. The aggressor is completely exhausted after using all his power, but our protagonist just looks at him with disdain and thinks how weak and fragile that magical power is. He then reflects that if this is the power level of the strongest, it can only mean that the world has become a much more peaceful place. Soon after, the bully approaches the protagonist's group with an air of superiority. With a mocking smile, he gestures, calling the guy to the platform as if challenging him. Our protagonist just looks back at him with a slight smile, showing he's not afraid of his challenge. He then raises his hand and confidently declares that he's next to take the test. The other students start whispering among arm themselves, with one of them commenting that isn't he the kid who was in the hospital, and they bet he'll get a single-digit score. As he walks towards the platform, the former Demon King thinks about how they built something interesting to measure magical power, since nothing like it existed in his time. Yamazaki takes the opportunity to provoke him and mockingly asks if this is a history class, since studying is the only thing the guy is good at. However, our protagonist completely ignores the provocation and remains focused on his goal. The mention of studying triggers a memory of the old Daya, who spent hours in the library, dedicated to his books. He remembers how he found it all so difficult, and the voice of his mother telling him to ask her if he didn't understand something. The memory of his mother hits him hard, and he's startled as he mentally calls out for her, snapping back to reality. The memory takes him back to a happy moment where his mother was helping him study, and he would respond with a cheerful eyes. But that happy memory quickly fades, and he finds himself alone again in the library. He hunches over the books, desperately trying to understand the material with no one to help him. Back in the present, our protagonist glares at Yamazaki with pure rage and thinks that he would never understand the feelings of someone who had to learn everything on their own. With this determination, he steps onto the measurement platform with his arms crossed and a confident expression. Soon after, a dark and overwhelming aura begins to emanate from his body, enveloping the entire gym and startling the other students. However, the aura vanishes as quickly as it appeared, leaving everyone confused by what they just witnessed. Asahi and Yamazaki are left clueless, wondering what that sudden display of power was. The meter then beeps and displays an absurd score of 10,882. Yamazaki panics and yells that it must be a mistake and the machine has to be broken. Meanwhile, Asahi is the only one who seems to have an idea of what happened, wondering if he released a massive amount of magic for just a fraction of a second. The instructor also finds it strange, and seeing the numbers continue to climb to 40,362, he calls the guy over and asks him to measure again on the device next to it. Two students are impressed by the numbers that keep rising, and one of them comments that even among the regular members of the suppression team, very few can surpass the 10,000 mark. Our protagonist notices Asahi's gaze and wonders if she was the only one who could truly feel what he did. Our protagonist then says there's no need to move, and that he will show his power slowly. With a confident smile, he leans back, preparing to release his energy. His smile widens even more, showing a confidence no one expected. With his eyes glowing, he unleashes his power once and for all, and the numbers on the meter start to skyrocket. The other students watch in shock as the score goes from 10,000 to 20,000, then 45,000 in a matter of seconds. Yamazaki yells that the machine is definitely broken, but Asahi corrects him, saying it's not. She explains that the protagonist's magical power is so vast that no one there can fully sense it. The machine then hits its limit and displays the maximum score of 99,999. The power released is so great that the meter simply explodes into pieces. The students are startled by the explosion and rush to protect themselves from the flying debris. Our protagonist just looks at the destroyed machine and calls it a flimsy toy with a mocking smile. All his classmates stare at him with expressions of pure shock and disbelief. Amidst the chaos, the instructor cancels the day's measurement and announces they will redo the test at another time. Suddenly, he receives an alert on his watch about an angel sighting in the city. With that, he summons all the trainees to provide support at the scene of the attack. The students are shocked by the sudden announcement, and one of them comments that the attack is happening very close by. Unlike the others, Yamazaki gets super excited about the chance for real combat and celebrates with his arms in the air. At the same time, Asahi clenches her fist with a determined expression, already preparing for the battle ahead. Our protagonist, on the other hand, seems to find the whole situation quite amusing and gives a smirk. The scene then shifts to an urban area of the city where the angel attack is taking place. There, a mother is peacefully strolling with her young son, who suddenly stops and looks up at the sky. The little boy points to the top of a building and recognizes the creature as the angel he saw in his textbook. His mother turns to see what he's pointing at and panics when she sees the creature. Without wasting a second, the celestial being dives at high speed directly towards the child. The creature grabs the boy, named Yuta, and his mother screams his name in complete desperation. At that exact moment, Yamazaki arrives on the scene and prepares a sphere of light to save the boy. The energy attack hits the angel head-on, causing a strong impact. With a smug smile, the bully brags about his feat and asks the creature what it thought of that. He watches the smoke clear, confident that his attack was enough to defeat the enemy. However, to his surprise, the creature emerges from the smoke without a scratch and glares at him with a deathly stare. The creature completely ignores him and, with a single blow, destroys a concrete pillar that falls right next to the bully. Yamazaki is startled by the angel's strength and falls to the ground, unable to react in time. The celestial being continues to ignore his presence and seems to be enjoying enjoying the situation. It then tosses the little boy Yuta into the air with a cruel smile on its face. The child falls at high speed while his mother watches the scene. Powerless, desperate, she screams her son's name and reaches out her hand as if she could save him. In this moment of pure panic, a hand appears and grabs the boy's shirt collar. It was our protagonist who appeared out of nowhere and saved the child just in time. He then tosses the boy into Asahi's arms, who catches him securely and compliments her classmate's nice catch. Our protagonist cracks his knuckles and seems to be warming up for the battle. With a confident smile, he thinks this will be a perfect opportunity to test out his new body. The angel growls in anger for having its toy stolen and glares at the guy with hatred. Our protagonist returns the look with the same intensity, and the two face off in a battle of wills. The celestial creature then begins to grow in size, transforming into a much larger and scarier version of itself. Yamazaki and Asai are completely shocked by the transformation, and the bully can't believe his magic didn't work. With a confident smile, our protagonist says he'll start with a little warm up, and a purple aura begins to envelop him. He faces the creature with a serious look, preparing for combat. Suddenly, a man appears running and yells for everyone to stay away from the battle. The newcomer introduces himself as Makoto Sato, the leader of the 2nd Assault Unit, and says he'll take care of the situation. Asai is relieved to see that the subjugation team has finally arrived to help. Our protagonist observes the new warrior and thinks, so these are the knights of this era. With a challenging smile, he's interested in the leader's skills and wants to see what he's capable of. Makoto checks his device and sees that the nearest backup will only arrive in 10 minutes. Given this, he looks at the protagonist and says he'll fight too, acknowledging his presence. The leader then turns to Asahai and calls her into the battle, and she responds promptly. Sato explains they need to buy time until help arrives, and that he's counting on her for cover, and so he draws his magic weapon and prepares for combat. The leader fires at the angel, which is hit head on but doesn't seem to take much damage. The creature then dodges the next shots with impressive speed, surprising everyone. Our protagonist watches the scene with interest and lets out a ho, showing he's finding this amusing. Following her leader's example, Asahai draws her sword and charges towards the angel. She attacks with a swift and precise strike, aiming for the creature's neck. However, to her surprise, the angel manages to block the attack with just one finger. Asahai is completely shocked and can't believe her attack was stopped so easily. Taking advantage of the distraction, Makoto charges from behind the creature with his own sword. He manages to land a deep cut on the enemy's back, which screams in pain. The creature's blood splatters everywhere, and it seems to have finally been wounded. But the angel doesn't give up and retaliates with a powerful kick, right to the leader's face. Makoto is sent flying by the impact while Asahi prepares to attack again. The girl draws her magic weapon and fires a concentrated energy blast. The attack hits the angel right in the head, causing a small explosion. Even injured, the creature doesn't fall and just grinds its teeth in anger. Ready for the next round, Asahai realizes they're at a disadvantage and comments that they don't have enough firepower, lamenting that she's not stronger. Makoto looks at the situation with a serious expression and disagrees with her. He then explains that to subjugate an angel, teamwork is the most important thing of all. He continues, saying the standard is to fight with at least 3 regular team members. But before he could finish his sentence, the angel charges at him with terrifying speed. The creature tries to land a powerful punch on Makoto, but our protagonist appears out of nowhere and blocks the blow with his own hand. The leader and Asahai are completely shocked by the sudden intervention and the guy's strength. Our protagonist glares at the angel with a determined look, ready for a counter-attack. The creature growls in frustration, unable to understand where all that power came from. The celestial being then backs away and observes the trio of warriors, preparing for their next move. With a confident smile, our protagonist says it looks like they're in trouble and offers his help. Makoto tries to send him back, calling him a trainee, but is interrupted by Asahai. The girl says he could be useful and that they should accept his help. The leader is reluctant but agrees on the condition that the guy stays strictly on support. He warns that the protagonist must be strictly support and asks if he understood the orders. Our protagonist agrees and Makoto and Asahi move forward, but the guy ignores them and charges the angel. The creature is confused and wonders when he got so close, so fast. The angel then tries to attack with a punch, but the protagonist is faster and hits it first. With a single punch, he sends the angel flying into the sky with absurd force. Asahi and Makoto are completely shocked by the scene and can't believe what they just saw. The leader turns to look at the explosion in the sky and can't believe the strength of that guy. The angel crashes to the ground, completely defeated and surrounded by debris. Makoto is speechless and can't understand how a trainee managed to defeat the angel with a single blow. From the top of a nearby building, our protagonist appears, shrouded in a purple aura, ready for the next round. He points at the fallen angel with a defiant look and fires a powerful beam of dark energy that streaks across the city. The attack hits the angel head on, and our protagonist lands on the ground with impressive agility. Makoto faces him and asks who he really is, but the guy cuts him off and tells him to get in a fighting stance. The angel screams in pain and rage, getting up once again even even after being hit by 2 powerful attacks. The creature flies into the sky and positions itself between 2 buildings, preparing for a counter-attack. It then begins to gather a large amount of golden energy in its hands, and fires 2 powerful beams of light towards Makoto and Asahi. Faced with imminent danger, the leader shouts and creates an energy shield to protect himself and his partner. Makoto's shield forms in a hexagonal pattern as another female student also joins in to help with the defense. This other student runs with determination to assist, as she also feels she needs to help, and so, the 3 join forces and try to hold the barrier against the creature's attack. However, the angel's power is overwhelming and hits the shield with tremendous force, shattering it. The impact is so strong that the barrier shatters, and the girls are thrown back. At that exact moment, our protagonist springs into action and creates a dark energy barrier to protect them from another attack. His defense completely absorbs the blow, showing the huge power difference between them. With the attack repelled, the celestial creature feels the pain of its previous injuries and groans in agony. Seeing this, the other female student celebrates happily, thinking they've finally won the battle. However, the angel is not defeated and begins to rise from the ground with an expression of pure rage. To the girl's despair, the creature's wound begins to regenerate rapidly with a strange aura. In a matter of seconds, the celestial being is fully healed, showing the fight is far from over. Faced with this situation, Makoto stands in front of his fallen comrades to protect them from danger. He then yells that he will protect them at all costs and orders everyone to fight while retreating to a safe location. However, our protagonist appears beside him and says with complete calm that there's no need to retreat. With a wicked smile, our protagonist turns to the other warriors and says he will teach them the right way to take down an angel. He then charges towards the creature and tells everyone to watch very carefully. The angel tries to hit him with one of its sharp claws, but the guy dodges with ease. With a swift move, he grabs the enemy's arm with absurd strength, and with a confident smile, he rips off the creature's arm without the slightest difficulty. The celestial being screams in pain, unable to believe the strength of this human. Our protagonist then steps back and watches the angel try to regenerate. The creature's severed arm begins to twist and dissolve into a strange goo. He then explains to the others that even low-ranking angels possess high regenerative power. Yamazaki and his friends watch the scene, terrified, and the bully admits they can't win this battle. Asahi and the other female student also seem worried about the situation and don't know what to do. The angel grinds its teeth in anger and focuses to attack again. A golden magic circle forms around it and it begins to gather a large amount of energy. It then raises its hand and prepares to fire a devastating attack. The blast of golden energy is launched towards the protagonist, who remains still, showing no reaction. Our protagonist just watches the attack approach with a confident smile on his face. With a simple side step, he dodges the energy blast with impressive ease. The angel is completely shocked and can't believe its most powerful attack was dodged that way. Asahi and the other girl are also dumbfounded, and the former comments that he dodged a beam of magic, something that shouldn't be possible. Our protagonist then raises a finger and explains that there's a limit to the magical power an angel can use to regenerate. He then concentrates a small sphere of purple energy at the tip of his finger, and fires a concentrated energy beam directly at the angel. Makoto is confused by what the protagonist did and wonders what the purpose of that attack was. The angel's body begins to crack and slowly regenerate. The other female student notices that the creature's regeneration is slower than before. Our protagonist then explains that if let the angel regenerate multiple times, they'll be the first to get tired. Yamazaki gets frustrated with the situation and complains that the protagonist doesn't look tired at all. The celestial being growls in anger and prepares to attack once more. Our protagonist notices that the creature's magical power is concentrated in its head and chest. With a swift movement, he lunges forward and grabs the angel's head with one hand, and with his other hand, he grips the creature's chest tightly. With a sinister smile, our protagonist holds both of the angel's vital points at the same time. With a roar of rage, he delivers the final blow and destroys the enemy's power core, and explains that if both points are destroyed simultaneously, the creature can never regenerate again. With his face stained by the enemy's blood, he turns to the others and asks with a smile if that was a helpful reference. Makoto and the girls are left completely speechless by that display of power and knowledge. Meanwhile, Yamazaki is terrified and can't believe what just happened. Makoto is impressed and comments that even if someone knew the weak spot, doing it so easily is incredible. He adds that it's something only the world's 5 would be capable of. However, Yamazaki refuses to believe it and thinks Mizukami is definitely cheating somehow. Meanwhile, our protagonist wipes the blood from his face, seemingly unbothered by the others' comments. Makoto then approaches and says that either way he saved them, but asks who he really is. With a confident smile, our protagonist introduces himself again as Dantirio, the great and powerful Demon King. Faced with that bizarre answer, the unit leader is left completely confused and clueless. He then decides to use his wrist device to report the situation, or perhaps to look up that strange name. The device shows a hologram with the guy's information, and Makoto confirms his identity as Mizukami Daya, and so, he says they will probably fight together again, and that he looks forward to working with him in the future, and our protagonist agrees. The other female student gets super excited by the conversation and comments that it's basically an invitation to join the regular members. Our protagonist just observes the others with his arms crossed and a serious expression, while Asahi seems irritated about something. The girl grinds her teeth in anger and frustration but says nothing. Meanwhile, the other female student approaches the protagonist a bit shyly. She then asks how he suddenly became so strong, since he used to be a loser just like her. Our protagonist looks at her with a raised eyebrow and repeats the word suddenly with a questioning tone. He then looks at his teammates, who still seem confused and shocked by everything that happened. With all the seriousness in the world, he replies that it's because he awakened as the Demon King. The girl is a little embarrassed by the answer but seems to accept his strange explanation. Makoto and Asai, on the other hand, are left completely speechless and can't believe what they just heard. The student then asks with admiration if she can one day become as strong as him. Our protagonist ponders the question with a thoughtful expression. His eyes gleam with a blue light, and he seems to have had an interesting idea. He then analyzes the girl's aura and says with confidence that she has the talent to become strong. The student gets super excited by the compliment and asks with shining eyes if it's really true. Our protagonist confirms with a smile and says that, with the right training, she'll definitely make it. But before he could finish his sentence, he senses a threatening presence, and his face changes completely. He then yells for Asahi to run, but it's too late, and something attacks her from behind. A robotic hand grabs her neck tightly, and the girl is completely shocked, not understanding what's happening. A giant, sinister eye appears in front of her, and she realizes she's in mortal danger. Before she could react, a new enemy appears and attacks her with one of its sharp blades. However, our protagonist is faster and fires an energy beam from his finger to intercept the attack. The angel dodges the beam with incredible agility, showing it's a formidable opponent. The new enemy seems to be enjoying the situation and points at the protagonist with a mocking gesture. The creature then starts laughing and healing from the wounds of the previous battle. Its eyes glow with an intense green, and it seems ready for the next round. It fully heals, and its face displays a smile even more psychopathic than before. Asai hides behind a building and comments that she couldn't sense the presence of that new enemy. The girl looks behind her and wonders where the creature went. To her surprise, the angel appears right behind our protagonist, who remains calm and thoughtful. He lets out a "emph," showing he's not the least bit surprised by the sudden appearance. The creature then tries to hit him with a powerful punch, but our protagonist dodges with ease. The angel misses the blow and gets completely furious with the guy's agility. With incredible speed, it starts moving in circles around the protagonist, creating several clouds of smoke. The celestial being uses its wings to move at high speed, trying to confuse its opponent. Our protagonist observes the tactic and wonders if it's some kind of individual space-time teleportation. Makoto comments that there shouldn't have been individuals with this kind of ability in the past, showing his surprise. Our protagonist gives a sinister smile, finding the whole situation very interesting. The angel stops in front of him and says it found the guy's body very interesting, and with a psychopathic look, it declares it will investigate that body up close. Our protagonist returns the smile and says he's also interested in examining the creature's body. Suddenly, a second angel appears on the battlefield, surprising everyone. Makoto is in shock and comments that angels usually only appear a few times a year and that this is very strange. Asahi checks her device and says that type of angel isn't on the list. She then yells that it's a new type, and Makoto adds that this type only existed in literature from over 400 years ago. Meanwhile, our protagonist is amused by the situation, and a purple aura begins to envelop him. The creature eyes him suspiciously and seems to be analyzing its new opponent. The angel realizes he's not an ordinary human and is intrigued by his presence. Yamazaki watches the scene from a distance and sees a blonde boy who seems to be an important new character. The celestial being then gives a sinister smile, showing it's excited for the battle. Our protagonist prepares for combat, and the angel charges towards him. The creature tries to attack him with its sharp claws, but the guy dodges with ease. The angel tries to devour him with its mouth full of teeth, but the protagonist is faster. With a swift move, he grabs the creature's face with one of his hands, and with a confident smile he delivers a powerful blow. The attack creates a purple shockwave that tears across the street and hits the angel head on. The creature is completely disintegrated by our protagonist's overwhelming power. With a victorious smile, he turns to the other angel and says it will be his next opponent. The remaining celestial being observes our protagonist from a distance while floating in the air, preparing for combat. Faced with this, the guy simply clenches his fist and prepares for what's to come. The celestial creature then transforms into a ball of golden light and charges at high speed towards the former Demon King. With a completely insane smile, our protagonist manages to stop the attack with just one hand, absorbing all the energy. His smile widens even more, and with his eyes glowing, he shows he's enjoying the situation. However, the angel uses its teleportation ability and appears appears right behind the guy, preparing for a surprise attack. With a malicious look, the creature thinks it has finally caught its opponent off guard, and so, it attacks with its sharp wing towards the former Demon King's head. But to the angel's surprise, our protagonist manages to stop the blow with just one of his fingers. With a mocking tone, he says the enemy has a rare ability, and should use it more creatively. The creature gets furious with the humiliation, and the guy holds the energy sphere with both hands. The angel grinds its teeth in anger, realizing it has been completely outmatched by the protagonist's power. Seizing the opening, the former Demon King shoves the energy sphere back into the creature's chest. In the blink of an eye, he appears in the darkness with a calm and controlled expression, and with a final move, he crushes the angel's face with his hand, putting an end to the battle. With a dark aura, our protagonist holds the celestial creature and warns that he won't let it escape, no matter what. Makoto watches the scene, completely shocked, and wonders if the guy really managed to block the angel's spatial teleportation. With a victorious smile on his face, the former Demon King says he has finally found what he was looking for. Soon after, he rips a spiky core from the enemy's body and comments that this is the secret to its spatial movement. From there, the creature's body dissolves into dust and disappears completely in the protagonist's hand. At that moment, a memory of his former self as the powerful Demon King flashes in his mind. He then recalls the immense celestial gates from which the angels emerged during the Great War, and he also remembers the cruel and sinister smiles those creatures displayed as they destroyed everything. Back in the present, our protagonist analyzes the core carefully and realizes the material looks a lot like a gate. With a satisfied look, he thinks he's gathered enough information for now. The scene then returns to the moment he was about to finish off the first angel he faced. With a completely insane smile, he delivers a powerful punch right to the creature's face. The force of the impact is so absurd that his hand completely covers the celestial being's face. With a brutal move, he destroys the enemy's head without showing the slightest mercy, and so, he turns to his colleagues as the creature explodes into dark dust behind him. With his body all dirty, he gives a thumbs up with a confident smile. He then turns to his colleagues, who are watching everything from a distance. Completely in shock, Makoto and the girls can't believe the absurd strength they just witnessed. The leader of the assault unit is even more impressed, remembering that this was the guy's first real battle. Meanwhile, one of the other students panics, unable to cope with the scene of destruction. Makoto comments that being paralyzed with fear is the normal reaction, but it seems one person there isn't scared at all. Our protagonist then points to Asahi, showing he's referring to her. The unit leader agrees and says the girl really is special. He explains that even the instructors call her the berserker among the trainees because of her strength. Faced with the unexpected compliment, the girl gets completely flustered and embarrassed. However, Makoto turns to our protagonist and states that he is far beyond even her. With a smug smile, the guy crosses his arms and reminds him that he already said he's the Demon King. The unit leader laughs and asks if this Demon King story is some kind of joke or nickname. However, he gets serious and admits he almost wants to believe it and has no choice but to call his power abnormal. Our protagonist then cleans his face and warns that if they're surprised by this level of power, they'll never be able to defeat them. Makoto is confused by the warning and asks who the guy is referring to. Our protagonist then explains that the angel's power is much greater than this, and the unit leader replies that maybe that was true in the past. With a confident smile, he draws his weapon and says that nowadays, humans can handle them. The former Demon King is completely shocked by the warrior's overconfidence. He then thinks that their perception of angels is way too relaxed, while the other female students celebrate in relief. Suddenly, Asahi approaches and calls for Mizukami with a serious expression on her face. With a determined look, the girl asks him to train her, admitting that as she is now, she can't defeat the angels. She then yells with all her might that she needs to win, no matter what. Her determination reminds the protagonist of Jean, the former holy knight, who had the same grit. Faced with that request, our protagonist gives a slight smile, accepting the proposal. He then agrees to the training, and the girl stands before him, awaiting instructions. The former Demon King thinks that if she really is Jean's reincarnation, she still has a lot of room to grow. As the two talk, Yamazaki appears in the background, watching everything with a not-so-friendly expression. The bully grinds his teeth in anger and seems to be plotting something against the protagonist. The scene then cuts to Makoto laughing and talking with our protagonist, who seems to be enjoying the situation. Meanwhile, Yamazaki watches from a distance with pure rage, wondering what trick Mizukami used to get so strong. He sees our protagonist talking calmly with Asahi and can't accept his defeat. Suddenly, the aggressor has an idea and connects the dots, remembering that the reason the guy almost bit the dust before must be related to this. With a malicious smile, he concludes that the protagonist is using magical enhancement enrollment drugs to boost his power. The scene then shifts to the training grounds of the subjugation team school, where several students are practicing with robots. In the middle of the gym, one of the students is surrounded by several of these training drones, preparing for combat. For practice, they use a special anti-angel weapon called a magic sword. We see several students in combat stances, ready to test their skills against the machines. With a simple press of a button, a pink energy blade emerges from the sword's hilt. The robots then begin to measure the strength of the attacks and display the numbers on their heads. In an impressive leap, Asahi delivers a powerful blow to one of the drones with her magic sword. With a battle cry, she shows all her determination and strength during the training. The robot then displays the result of her attack, and her score is 672. With a swift and precise move, the girl hits the drone dead on with all her strength. Soon after, she checks her results on a holographic screen and lets out a sigh of relief. Our protagonist then picks up the hilt of one of the magic swords to test his power. Before Asahi's eyes, he activates the weapon, and a blue energy blade emerges from the device. With a smile, he comments that the tool amplifies the user's magic and solidifies it into a blade. The girl is surprised and asks what that is, because something seems completely wrong. The guy's sword blade is ridiculously long, and he seems to be having a lot of fun with it. Asahi then comments that he finally showed up and is amazed by the size of the weapon, which looks to be about 10 feet long, and the former Demon King replies that he kept his promise. With an excited look, he wonders if he should play around a bit with his new toy, and so he swings the giant blade towards one of the training drones. The robot starts beeping, preparing to measure the force of the incoming blow. The machine's sensors go completely haywire, and its eyes change color to an intense red. Soon after, the meter displays the maximum score of 9,999. Asahi screams in shock, unable to believe he maxed out the machine so easily. Our protagonist analyzes the sword with a thoughtful look and says it's a very convenient item. The girl explains that since conventional weapons don't work on angels, this was created to combat them, being the crystallization of humanity's wisdom. She then looks at him suspiciously and asks if he didn't learn something as basic as this in class. With a confused expression, our protagonist wonders if he really did learn about that in class. The question triggers a memory of the old Daya, who spent hours studying and dedicating himself to books in the library. Back in the present, the guy admits the sword is powerful, but seems to have found a problem with it. And so, he swings the giant blade once more with all his might towards another robot, and with a devastating blow, he hits the machine head-on, preparing to destroy it. However, the sword's energy fails at the moment of impact and can't handle the protagonist's power. With that, the hilt of the magic sword begins to crack and breaks completely in his hand. He then throws the remains of the weapon on the ground and explains that if you possess magic above a certain level, the sword becomes a shackle. Even with the broken weapon, the shockwave of the attack hits the training drone, and the robot is completely destroyed into pieces before everyone's eyes. One of the female students comments that the anti-angel magic sword couldn't withstand the user's magic. Our protagonist then turns to Asahi and says she should graduate from using the sword and improve how she uses her own magic. Faced with that advice, the other female student gets super excited about the possibility of learning that method. With her eyes shining, she runs towards the protagonist and asks him to teach her too. The girl then yells with all her might that she also wants to become stronger. Asahi watches the scene with a disdainful expression and doesn't seem very happy about her classmate's request. She then turns to the other student and asks if the training menu for trainees isn't sufficient for her level. The girl gets a little embarrassed by the comment, but seems to remember something important. With her face all red, she recalls that Daya said she has talent and gets super excited about it. Asahi is completely confused and annoyed by her classmate's familiarity, wondering why she's calling the guy Daya. However, our protagonist just smiles and agrees to train the other student as well. The girl is radiant with happiness, and with shining eyes, she celebrates the opportunity. Our protagonist approaches her and says that before they start, he needs to do one thing. Suddenly, he pokes the girl's cheek, who is completely surprised and embarrassed by the touch. The student feels a strange energy and starts to writhe as if she's in pain. She struggles and tries to break free, but the guy holds her firmly while continuing the process. Soon after, the girl falls to the ground, completely exhausted and not understanding what happened. Asahi gets furious at the scene and yells at the protagonist, asking what he just did to her classmate. With complete calm, he explains that her magic flow was clogged, and he just gave it a little tune up. Lying on the floor, the other student breathes heavily, and with her face all red, she seems to have felt something very intense. After the procedure, our protagonist simply turns and starts to walk away. He then picks up the hilt of another magic sword that was nearby. With a swift motion, he throws the weapon towards the student. The girl panics upon seeing the object flying and tries to catch it in mid-air. With some difficulty, she manages to grab the sword's hilt with both hands. The former Demon King just smiles and tells her to try using the weapon now. The student is reluctant and explains that someone like her has never even been able to activate a magic sword before. Our protagonist insists that she just try, and the girl gets nervous under the pressure, and so she concentrates and assumes a combat stance, preparing to release her energy. To everyone's surprise, a pink energy blade emerges from the sword's hilt with an intense glow. The girl gets super excited and yells that she finally managed to activate the weapon. Asahi is completely shocked and can't believe she managed to do that so easily. The student then explains that in their class, only the upperclassman Sakuraba was able to use a sword like that. Our protagonist points to one of the training robots and tells her to test the weapon's power. With a determined smile on her face, the girl turns to the drone, ready to show off her new strength. The student faces the training robot with her new magic sword, ready for the attack. With a battle cry, she hits the drone with all her might. The robot's meter then displays a score of 112, leaving the girl a bit surprised. She gets super excited with the result, as she had never gotten such a high number before. Our protagonist gives the girl a thumbs up, showing he's satisfied with her progress. Meanwhile, Asahi watches the scene with frustration and thinks that when she first managed to use the sword, it was nothing like that. She remembers her score was only 89, showing the huge potential difference between the two. Faced with that display of power, Asahi runs towards the protagonist and asks him to help her too. The former Demon King turns to the girl with a serious expression. Without saying a word, his eyes glow with a blue light, and he coldly says that it's not necessary for her. He then explains that her magic is already flowing cleanly throughout her body. With tears in her eyes, the girl becomes desperate and asks if that means she can't get any stronger. Our protagonist gives a confident smile and replies, "Not with the same method I used on the other one." With a challenging look, he reveals that he has prepared a special training menu just for her. Soon after, several training robots activate and surround the girl, preparing for combat. Asahi is confused and repeats his words, asking if he has a training menu for her. Our protagonist smiles and tells her to raise her magical power to the limit. Though a bit reluctant, Asahi agrees to follow the instruction, while the other student watches, and so, she plants her feet on the ground and begins to concentrate with all her might. A pink aura begins to emanate from her body as she screams and unleashes all her energy at once. Her scream is full of effort and determination, showing she's giving it her all. Seeing this, our protagonist makes a strange gesture with his hand, preparing for something. Suddenly, he approaches and places his hand on her head, surprising the girl. The other student seems to find the situation quite amusing and lets out an excited laugh. She watches everything with a flushed face and with great attention, without blinking. The guy's hand remains on Asahi's head, and the pink energy around her becomes even more intense. With her face all red, Asahi breathes heavily, not understanding what just happened. Soon after, she falls to her knees, completely exhausted and without strength. She tries to get up but realizes she can't move her body at all. A notification of magical power depletion appears, and the girl remains on the floor, panting. With a flushed face, she wonders if her magic was really drained completely. The other student is impressed and yells that she's never heard of a technique like that. Our protagonist then closes his hand and a pink aura begins to glow on it. He approaches the fallen girl and says it's not over yet. Soon after, he places his glowing hand on her head once more. The other student gets scared and yells that he's doing it again. An intense energy begins to flow from the guy Asahi, who remains on the floor. The girl grinds her teeth and lets out a groan of effort, feeling the power enter her body. Suddenly, her eyes widen as she notices a change happening inside her. The former Demon King then asks how she's feeling after the procedure. Asahi keeps her head down and seems to be processing the new sensation. With an expression of pure shock, she realizes her magic is recovering rapidly. The other student points at him and yells that magic absorption and transfer goes against magical theory. Our protagonist turns to her with disdain and asks, "What incorrect theory is that?" Meanwhile, Asahi begins to get up from the floor, her face flushed and completely recovered. Our protagonist then points at the girl and, with a serious expression, tells her to do it all over again. The girl is completely terrified by the order and can't believe what he's asking. He explains that the method consists of depleting magical power and then rapidly recovering it, and that if she repeats this process, her total capacity and magic output will increase. Still on the floor, Asahi processes the explanation while the other student watches from a distance. The girl is doubtful and asks if that really works. The other student then warns that magic depletion can have lasting side effects and is therefore strictly forbidden. With an air of superiority, our protagonist asks if people really believe that nonsense, and the girl is left confused. With a serious look, the guy reveals that this is exactly how he trained. Faced with that revelation, Asahi slowly gets up with her head down, seemingly considering the proposal. Our protagonist then faces her and asks what she's going to do, and if she'll accept the challenge. The girl looks up and faces the guy with an expression of doubt and determination. Her eyes shine with a new resolve, showing she has made a decision. With a firm motion, she clenches her fist tightly, showing she won't back down, and so, she declares with conviction that she accepts the training and is ready to begin. Hearing her answer, our protagonist gives a slight smirk, satisfied with her attitude. Our protagonist then says they will repeat this 100 times a day. The girl is completely terrified by the demand and can't believe what she heard. She screams the number in disbelief, but the former Demon King just gives a thumbs up and asks if she's ready. Even scared, Asai stammers eyes, showing her determination is unshakable. With that, the guy extends his hand, and the brutal training begins once more. The girl falls to the ground, screaming in pain and exhaustion with each cycle of magic depletion. He then uses his technique to transfer power back into her body. Asahi feels her energy recover instantly while the other student watches, shocked, and the process of draining and recovering magic repeats endlessly. The young woman endures each repetition, her face sweaty and her expression one of pure effort. After 3 hours of torture, the girl passes out on the floor, completely exhausted. Our protagonist approaches and comments that they only did it 20 times. However, he decides that's enough for the first day of training. He then turns to the other student and asks if she's ever seen this method before. The girl replies that not even in the training of regular members has she heard of anything like it. Our protagonist clenches his fist with a thoughtful look and says he understands the situation. He then turns to the girl and asks what kind of organization the Angel Suppression Team is. Super excited, the student offers to explain everything to him and begins to speak. She says that magic exams are held in schools across the country, and teenagers with talent are gathered in training schools. If they achieve certain grades in these places, they join one of the 5 suppression teams in the world, and the regular members in Japan number around 100. Our protagonist is surprised and comments that it's a very low number. The girl continues, explaining that from a school that admits about 100 students per year, at most a few become regular members. Since the salary is high and the benefits are good, it's a very popular profession. The former Demon King remembers the angel he faced and how the other warriors were no match for it. He recalls Makoto, the unit leader, and thinks about how he was one of the most experienced there. With a serious look, he reflects that these warriors are the elite of the elite, but the ones who should be the most experienced in age are at such a low level. He thinks about the nonsense regarding magic depletion and how it hinders their growth, the magic tool that should be excellent but becomes a limitation for the strongest, and the appearance of a new type of angel he had never seen before. Our protagonist is left alone in the middle of the gym, while the 2 girls watch him from a distance. All this information takes him back to the Great Angel Offensive that began 600 years ago. With a determined look, our protagonist realizes what needs to be done. The 2 girls watch him, and he says he needs to increase the number of strong warriors, even if by just 1. He grinds his teeth and thinks that he can't make the same mistakes as back then, and so, he concludes that the best option is to join the organization and train the others from the inside. With this decision made, he takes a step forward with new determination. With a confident air, he declares that he will become a regular member right at this moment. The scene then cuts to a classroom at the training school, where all the students are gathered. Suddenly, the door opens and everyone turns to see who has arrived. Asahi is focused on her studies and doesn't even notice the movement around her. Our protagonist then sits next to her, and the girl comments that he's late. With a smirk, he explains that he was meeting with the school's principal. The girl is confused and asks why he would want to meet with the principal. The former Demon King just gives a mysterious smile and says she'll understand soon enough. At that moment, a man in a suit with an imposing presence enters the classroom. All the students stand up in respect for the principal, who walks through the room with a serious expression. Some students whisper among themselves, not understanding the reason for the unexpected visit. Yamazaki and his friends watch the scene with boredom and don't seem to care much. The principal then opens a clipboard and announces that it has been decided that a match for the regular member recommendation will be held next week. The news causes an uproar in the room, and all the students start talking at once. Some students are worried about the sudden announcement and don't know what to expect. The other girl comments that it was very sudden and wasn't in the plans. The principal explains that the match is a direct order from him and announces the first fight. He reveals that the first match will be between Yamazaki Kayu and Momoyama Mizuki, and the 2 are completely shocked. Soon Soon after, he announces the second match, which will be between Sakuraba Asahi and Mizukami Daya. Everyone in the room falls silent and a tense atmosphere settles in the air. Asahi turns to our protagonist and asks what he did to make this happen. With a mischievous smile on his face, the guy just lets out a "Hiya" without giving any more details. The scene then cuts to a flashback of the protagonist in the principal's office with his hands behind his back. The principal is analyzing some information on a holographic screen while talking to the guy. The principal says he can't recommend him for regular membership with those grades. He explains that if the guy had sufficient combat ability, he would be recognized, but it's obvious he doesn't. Our protagonist then asks if he just needs to demonstrate his power, and the principal replies yes. The man seems a bit skeptical of the guy's confidence but decides to give him a chance. Our protagonist looks at the principal with a serious expression and awaits the proposal. With a mocking smile, the principal opens his mouth to give his verdict. He says that if the guy can defeat Sakuraba Asahi, he might consider the recommendation. The former Demon King asks if the principal promises to recommend him if he wins. The man replies that he can't make promises but seems to be enjoying the situation. He then turns to the guy with a challenging look, ready to hear his counter-proposal. Our protagonist confidently declares that he will train Momoyama Mizuki and make her defeat Yamazaki Kaiyu. The principal bursts out laughing and asks if the two worst students are really going to beat the two best. With a dramatic gesture, the guy says that if that's not enough, he'll bet his expulsion on it. The man is impressed by the student's audacity and seems to reconsider. Our protagonist then delivers the final blow and says it would be better for him to just accept, as he wants to keep his hospitalization a secret. The principal points to the screen and says he can't recommend our protagonist with those grades. The screen shows the report on the guy's cardiac arrest from an overdose of magical enhancement drugs, with bullying as the suspected cause, plus a cover up by the school. With that, the principal thinks for a bit and imposes the condition that they'd both win the simulated battle, thinking it would be a good relief to get rid of them. He then makes a 2 sign with his fingers and reinforces that the condition is for both of them to win their respective fights. Our protagonist smiles and says the proposal is acceptable. Back in the classroom, the atmosphere is buzzing with excitement over the announcement of the fights. Yamazaki clenches his fists tightly, showing all his frustration with the situation. He then yells indignantly that his opponent is the loser girl and that they're underestimating him. Meanwhile, the other students just watch the scene with varied expressions of surprise and curiosity. With a mocking smile, the bully says that if this will get him the recommendation for the suppression team, then it'll be an easy task. He clicks his tongue in anger, and even though he doesn't like the idea, he decides he'll fight. Soon after, he points at our protagonist and yells that after he defeats the girl, he'll be next. The other female student is terrified by the threat and calls out for Dea with a fearful expression. The former Demon King turns to her with a gentle smile and tells her not to make that face. With his arms crossed, he declares with total confidence that if she goes through his training, she'll definitely be able to win. With a determined look, the girl stammers a yes, while Yamazaki grinds his teeth in anger in the background. Asahi then says she's also looking forward to the fight. With a confident smile, she declares she'll try to get at least a little stronger by next week. The principal then calls for Momoyama and Mizukami, who are about to leave the room. He warns them to be careful not to get hurt during training. With a mocking smile, Asahi replies that actually, they're the ones who should be careful not to kick the bucket, and that the guy will be fine, which makes Yamazaki furious. The principal starts to laugh at the girl's comment. He finds it amusing and says that even Sakuraba has started telling jokes. Our protagonist gives a smile to the other female student, who is a bit nervous about the situation. Meanwhile, Yamazaki and Asahi glare at each other with expressions of pure rivalry and contempt. The scene then cuts to the training field where our protagonist and the other girl are preparing. He asks if she's skilled in barrier magic, and the young woman replies that it's the only thing she knows how to do. With a sad expression, she says it must be because she's too much of a coward. Our protagonist gives a thumbs up and comforts her, saying that's the correct instinct for a living being. He then adds that beyond overcoming fear with skill and logic lies strength. With her eyes shining with admiration, the girl thinks that's what you'd expect from Lord Daya. Our protagonist then reveals his plan and says they will aim for victory against Yamazaki using barrier magic. The student is shocked and yells that the fight is one-on-one and that barrier magic is only good for buying time. With a dark and imposing aura, he declares he will teach those fools that magic depends on how you use it. The scene then cuts to the location of the all-school simulated battle tournament. Our protagonist and Asahi are sitting together with serious and focused expressions. Meanwhile, in the audience, other students eagerly await the start of the fights. The principal then announces that the winner will be the one who makes their opponent give up or knocks them out. He warns that he will stop the fight if he thinks it's getting too dangerous and asks if everyone understands. The two competitors stare each other down with expressions of pure determination and rivalry. With a shout, the principal announces the start of the match between Momoyama Mizuki and Yamazaki-ku. The bully charges full speed towards the girl and yells that he'll end this quickly. However, the student remains calm and creates a pink energy barrier to protect herself. Yamazaki's attack hits the barrier head-on and causes a large smoke explosion. Despite the impact, the girl manages to defend herself and remains standing behind her protection. Yamazaki yells that it's not enough and continues to attack the barrier relentlessly. In the audience, one of the students comments that the bully's power is overwhelming. The aggressor yells for the girl to just stay there forever, but she seems to have a plan in mind. With a swift movement, she draws a magic circle on the ground with her fingers. The student then shouts and activates her trap right where the enemy is standing. Suddenly, a pink energy sphere emerges from the ground and flies towards Yamazaki. The guy is caught by surprise and can't dodge the trap in time. The energy sphere then closes around him, preparing to explode. However, to everyone's surprise, the sphere dissolves into smoke without causing any damage. Yamazaki's eyes widen with an expression of pure rage and frustration. He then yells that he can't believe her trap failed. Without wasting time, he fires several energy beams at the girl. The student manages to defend herself, but the smoke from the explosion covers the entire battlefield. With a determined look, she watches the cloud of dust dissipate. A large amount of smoke still covers the arena, making it difficult for everyone to see. Yamazaki yells that a smoke screen is useless and prepares for a new attack. He then charges full speed towards the girl, yelling for her to take the hit. The student remains calm and creates a pink energy barrier to protect herself. Her eyes shine with unshakable determination as she braces for the impact. A colossal explosion occurs, kicking up even more dust and obscuring everyone's vision. The principal watches the scene with a serious expression, trying to understand what's happening. He focuses amidst the smoke and notices something strange about the girl's strategy. He then realizes the student isn't just defending herself, but is planning something bigger. With a swift movement, she creates a magic circle and seems to be controlling something from a distance. Yamazaki clicks his tongue in anger upon realizing the girl isn't where he expected. He sees her on the other side of the arena and charges towards her, determined to end the fight. The girl watches the enemy approach and prepares to activate her next trap. With a shout, she activates the barrier that was hidden in the smoke, right in the bully's path. Yamazaki is caught by surprise and crashes into the invisible barrier, feeling a lot of pain. He wonders how she managed to remotely maintain a barrier and why something like that even exists. The girl pleads for her magic to work and continues to concentrate. The scene then flashes back to the training, where our protagonist was teaching her to fold the barrier. The student says she can't do it because it defies the laws of magic. She sees our protagonist easily folding a barrier and is shocked by the demonstration. With a thoughtful look, the former demon king seems to be analyzing the situation. He then creates a barrier in the shape of an envelope and folds it in half with a simple gesture. The girl is impressed and yells that it's so cool. Back in the fight, she remembers his teachings and tries to fold her own barrier. She concentrates with all her might as the barrier begins to tremble. With a cry of determination, she finally decides to ignore the laws of magic. To everyone's surprise, the barrier begins to fold in half. Yamazaki is completely shocked and can't believe she folded the barrier. The student then points at the bully and prepares for a counter-attack. She launches the folded barrier at him, trapping him completely. The aggressor is terrified, his eyes wide, unable to move. The barrier closes into a triangle around the bully, trapping him completely. He yells that it's a cheap trick and that the top is open. The girl then closes her hand and prepares for the next move. Suddenly, a new barrier appears at the top of the trap, closing the bully's only escape route. The barrier is now a perfect cube, and the aggressor is completely trapped inside. In the audience, Asai cheers excitedly and yells that he's been caught. Yamazaki starts pounding on the barrier and yells for them to get him out. He then says it's not a fair fight and that he'll never give up. With a confident smile, the girl reveals that her fire magic is weak, but she can decrease the oxygen concentration inside the barrier. The bully is shocked by the revelation and starts to feel the effects of the lack of air. He screams in desperation and slowly begins to suffocate inside the magical prison. The girl plants her feet firmly on the ground and prepares to deliver the final blow. She declares she can maintain that barrier for a whole day, and Yamazaki realizes there's no escape. With victory secured, the student sighs in relief, and the bully realizes she planned everything from the beginning. With no options left, Yamazaki falls to his knees and gives up the fight, cursing the situation. With clenched teeth, the bully yells that he would never lose to someone like her. His anger is so great that he refuses to accept defeat in any way. The girl is surprised by his persistence and didn't expect this attitude. Suddenly, a golden aura explodes around Yamazaki as he begins to break free from the magical prison. With a roar of fury, he's thrown backward as the barrier shatters from the impact of his power. The bully's hand breaks through the protection, and the student is shocked by the scene. Before her eyes, the pink energy barrier shatters into several hexagonal pieces. Completely free, the aggressor is panting and exhausted but doesn't seem willing to give up. His eyes burn with rage, and he glares at the girl with a deadly look, ready for a counter-attack. The young woman is frightened by the enemy's overwhelming presence, who looks like a giant before her. However, she doesn't let it shake her and prepares for the next round with a determined expression. The bully then yells that playtime is over and that he's gonna end the fight once and for all. The girl runs with a smile on her face as the aggressor chases her at full speed. Filled with hatred, he gathers a golden energy sphere in his hand, ready for the final attack. The student is terrified upon seeing the energy sphere coming at her with nowhere to escape. However, instead of panicking, the girl closes her eyes with a determined expression. From there, she tightly grips the hilt of a magic sword that appeared out of nowhere. Yamazaki is shocked to see a pink energy blade materializing right in front of him. To the bully's surprise, the young woman manages to stop his attack with the magic sword, leaving him speechless. With a flushed face but a firm gaze, she looks at him and says that she was the one who won the fight. The aggressor can't believe a loser like her is wielding a weapon like that. Seeing the battle's outcome, the principal raises his hand and officially ends the match. Amidst the arena's smoke, he announces Momiyama's victory for all to hear. In the audience, Asahi celebrates excitedly while our protagonist smiles, satisfied with the result. Defeated, Yamazaki punches the ground in anger, yelling, "Damn it," as the girl walks away exhausted. The bully's friends are dumbfounded and wonder how she got a magic sword. The student then walks out of the arena, and our protagonist watches her with a smile. With her face red from embarrassment, she approaches him a bit shyly. The former Demon King congratulates her with a smile and says she did very well. Completely exhausted, the girl faints into the guy's arms and replies, "Wes," with her last bit of strength. And so, our protagonist carefully lays the girl down on one of the bleacher seats while Asahi watches the scene. Even exhausted, the student seems to have a smile of satisfaction on her face for having won the fight. Our protagonist then gets up and, with a confident smile, says that now she can just sit back and watch. Faced with that attitude, Asahi's eyes fill with tears, and she begins to remember something important, stammering Dantirio's name. Noticing the change in her, the guy extends his hand and a strange energy begins to emanate from his fingers. The two are left alone in the arena, and the former Demon King then asks if she has finally remembered. With a radiant smile on her face, the girl confirms that she has and that her memories have finally returned. She then yells excitedly that he successfully reincarnated, and the guy confirms with his arms crossed. With a serious expression, our protagonist asks what happened after he fell. The girl then puts her hand on her head and, with a pained expression, tries to remember what happened after that. She closes her eyes tightly, concentrating to access the memories of her past life as Jean. However, to her frustration, she admits she can't remember anything that happened afterward. Seeing her difficulty, our protagonist extends his hand, preparing to help her recover her memories. With a swift motion, he places his hand on the girl's face, using his power to access her mind. In the stands, the other female student, who has woken up, is startled by the scene, along with Yamazaki, who is also watching in shock. Our protagonist concentrates and begins to see the memories of Asahi's past life. He then sees the former holy knight amidst the flames with an expression of pure determination. In his vision, the knight was standing before 5 angels in a scene of pure destruction. Back in the present, our protagonist's eyes fly open in shock as he realizes what happened. The girl looks at him, confused, not understanding his sudden reaction, and so, he explains that the memories engraved in her soul were intentionally sealed. She then asks why someone would do that, and the guy admits he doesn't know the answer either. With a thoughtful look, he suggests that maybe they should look for those 5 angels, because they might be the key to restoring Jean's lost memories. With an excited smile, the girl adds that they might also find out something about the angels' suspicious movements. Suddenly, the principal appears and asks what the two of them are doing there. With a confident smile, Asahi says she forfeits the match, and the principal is shocked by the declaration. The man then asks if she's sure of her decision while our protagonist just watches. The girl confirms with a smile on her face, showing she won't go back on her word. Soon after, she grabs the guy's wrist and pulls him to leave. Faced with the forfeiture, the principal raises our protagonist's arm and declares him the winner of the match. In the stands, Yamazaki and his friend are clueless, and the bully admits he has no idea what happened. He just adds that somehow Mizukami managed to beat the strongest student in the class, while the former Demon King just gives a satisfied smile. Soon after, the two start climbing the stairs and moving away from the arena. Asahi then calls him Dantirio but corrects herself, saying that calling him that feels weird now, and asks if Daya is okay. With a mischievous smile, our protagonist replies that he doesn't care what name she uses. Suddenly, the other female student appears and starts yelling at them out of nowhere. She then asks what kind of vibes vibe is going on between them, leaving the two a bit confused. Asahi tries to play it cool and says she doesn't know what she's talking about and that everything is as usual. However, the girl isn't convinced and yells that there's definitely something fishy going on. She then points at Asahi and says that before, she was always training with a demon's game face on, and now, the girl gets completely flustered by the comment and asks what's wrong with that. Her classmate then yells that now she looks like a girl in love, and Asahi denies the accusation, her face beet red. The other student insists she's right, and the two start arguing while Yamazaki and our protagonist just watch the scene. The former Demon King just gives a smirk, finding the whole situation quite amusing. As the argument raged on, our protagonist's attention turned to the stands. There we see the principal with a sour look on his face, seeming very stressed about something. Soon after, Makoto Sato appears and approaches the man, recommending that both Mizukami and Sakuraba be appointed as official members. The principal is visibly displeased and grinds his teeth, not knowing what to say. With that, Makoto reveals that he knows about the principal's plans to use Sakuraba as a political tool in various places, since she is a great talent who could become the strongest in history. Faced with that revelation, the man is left speechless, completely caught off guard. The unit leader explains that he wanted more time to train her, but the angels have been acting strangely lately, and they need to secure both of them before another country poaches them. In his thoughts, the principal laments that Sakuraba was supposed to be his gift to the American branch. Makoto then asks if he knows this and pressures him, saying that having two students skip a grade would reflect well on his record as principal. With a sharp look, he plays his final card and says that with the authority of the suppression team, he could choose to take only Mizukami. The principal panics and yells that if that happens, Sakuraba's value as a warrior will plummet completely. With an expression of pure disbelief, he asks if the leader really thinks Mizukami, a failure, is more valuable than Sakuraba. Makoto looks at him seriously and replies that it's unbelievable he would say something like that after watching that fight. And so, he adds that the former number 2 of the Japan branch has really gone senile, which leaves the principal furious and unable to say a word. Suddenly, our protagonist approaches the two, interrupting their conversation. With a confident smile, he points his finger and says the principal also needs to add Mizuki Momoyama to that list. Makoto then turns to the guy and greets him, asking if he thinks the girl has potential too. With his arms crossed, our protagonist declares with absolute certainty that she will if he trains her. Faced with that confidence, Makoto agrees and says he will discuss the matter with his superiors. The principal is completely defeated and grumbles in anger for being cornered, and so he clenches his fist with all his might, showing his fury at being powerless. The scene then cuts to an urban area of the city near Ariake. Soon after, a portal of light begins to open in the sky, catching everyone's attention. From within that portal, several winged creatures emerge and fly towards the city. The place they're headed is the training center of the Japanese branch of the Angel Suppression Team. We see several other warriors gathered there, awaiting instructions. In the midst of the crowd, our protagonist, Asahi, and the other female student observe everything with serious expressions. Makoto then extends his hand towards the three, preparing to introduce them. With a smile, he introduces them as the new recruits who have joined the team as of that day. Following the introduction, one of the more experienced warriors comments that it's strange to accept 3 people at once, and assumes they must be very talented. The other female student gets a bit nervous at the comment, while Makoto agrees with the assessment. Another member with pink hair observes the scene, and seems to be analyzing the new recruits. He then comments that it's rare for the unit leader to go to such lengths for rookies, and the gray-haired guy suggests they find out more at a welcoming party. Asahi gives a smirk, seeming to understand very well what that party means. With a determined look, she clenches her fists, preparing for what's to come. Our protagonist comments that he's heard rumors about this, and Asahi turns to the other female student with a mischievous smile, leaving the girl completely confused. The gray-haired guy then approaches and points at our protagonist, saying he'll take care of this rumored rookie. Soon after, the pink-haired girl turns to Asahi and says she'll take care of her. However, the woman with glasses interrupts everything and says it's a waste of time, offering to fight all 3 of them at once. Our protagonist gives a smirk and replies that he doesn't mind the challenge one bit. Faced with the challenge, Makoto just smiles and tells them not to get hurt during the fight. The pink-haired girl then turns to the leader and says with a smile that they won't be the ones getting hurt. With that, she cracks her knuckles, preparing for the fight that's about to begin. Asahi also seems super excited about the chance to fight and faces her opponents with a defiant look. The pink-haired girl finishes her sentence by kicking with all her might towards Asahi, who manages to block the blow just in time. With the impact of the blow, Asahi is sent flying while the other female student watches the scene, terrified. Meanwhile, the woman with glasses glares at the other girl with a sinister smile, preparing to attack. The upperclassman then charges towards the student, who panics upon seeing her approach. The girl is terrified and tries to protect herself from the attack coming her way. Soon after, Asahi hits the ground hard, kicking up a cloud of dust with the impact. However, she doesn't seem shaken at all and faces her opponent with a confident smile on her face. From there, she charges for a counter-attack while the other student creates a barrier to defend against the woman with glasses. However, Asahi realizes her friend is in danger and changes her target, yelling for the upperclassman to wait, but the pink-haired girl is faster and hits her dead on in mid-air. The other female student is terrified to see her friend get hit while trying to help her. With the impact of the blow, Asahi is slammed to the ground, unable to react. The woman with glasses then comments that they're good size, but the pink-haired one adds that their coordination is terrible. Worried about her friend, the other female student tries to get closer to help, but Asahi is already getting up, but the two upperclassmen glare at them with sinister smiles, showing the fight is far from over. Faced with the situation, the pink-haired girl charges to attack while the woman with glasses creates a barrier in the air. With an impressive leap, the upperclassman launches herself off the barrier and goes after the other student. The two rookies are terrified by the upperclassman's perfect coordination and don't know how to react. Suddenly, our protagonist's voice appears in their minds, giving precise instructions for the battle. Following the orders, Asahi backs up and prepares to attack while the other student creates two barriers on the sides. With a swift movement, the girl creates a magic circle and summons the two energy walls. The two upperclassmen are trapped between the barriers, unable to advance or retreat. They look at the new formation with expressions of both surprise and interest. From a distance, our protagonist watches the scene with a satisfied smile, pleased with his student's progress. His gaze is one of pure confidence, showing he knows exactly what he's doing. The upperclassmen find themselves surrounded by the barriers and the other student, who faces them with determination. Following the plan, Asahi begins to gather energy in her hands, preparing to fire. With a battle cry, she launches several energy blasts towards the enemies. The woman with glasses gives a confident smile and prepares to defend against the attacks. With her own powers, she manages to block all the energy blasts, creating a large smoke explosion. The other female student is jaw-dropped by the strategy, while our protagonist gives a smirk, knowing his plan will work. Meanwhile, the woman with glasses prepares a blue energy sphere, getting ready for a devastating attack. However, to her surprise, the other student's barrier manages to hold against the blow, and the upperclassman grinds her teeth in effort. With a swift movement, the girl manages to trap the upperclassman inside her magical prison, leaving her with no escape. With a satisfied smile, the student creates a new magic circle, preparing for the next step of the plan. At the same time, Asahi seizes the opening and grabs the pink-haired girl's arm, preventing her from helping her partner. From there, the two begin an intense exchange of blows, and the rookie manages to dodge a powerful kick. And so, she counters with a precise punch right to the upperclassman's face, who wasn't expecting that speed. From a distance, our protagonist watches the fight with a proud smirk at his student's performance. Seeing that things aren't going well, the gray-haired guy decides to intervene and charges towards the former Demon King. A greenish aura envelopes his fist, and he prepares to land a blow on our protagonist's back. However, our protagonist doesn't even turn around and manages to stop the punch with absurd ease, using just the back of his hand. The upperclassman gets furious with the humiliation and asks if the guy is just going to watch from a distance without fighting. With a mocking smile, our protagonist replies that if he joined the fight, this welcoming party would be over in an instant. Faced with that confidence, the upperclassman gives an excited smile and says he doesn't dislike energetic rookies like him. With a simple squeeze, our protagonist unleashes an overwhelming purple aura, and the upperclassman can't believe the rookie's strength. With a sinister smile, the former Demon King asks what's wrong and if he wasn't going to welcome him, and then takes a step forward, preparing to show his true power. With a single motion, he throws the upperclassman into the sky as if he weighed nothing. The gray-haired guy flies through the air, unable to react, while the girl's fight continues below. He then lands right in front of Asahi, who looks at him with a serious expression, and with a swift movement, she lands a kick on the guy, and sends the poor soul flying. The upperclassman falls to the ground, completely defeated and in a cold sweat from the beating he took. Suddenly, our protagonist's voice yells the other student's name, getting her attention. The girl replies, "Wes," with an excited smile and prepares for the next move. With a battle cry, she creates a pink energy barrier and launches it at the upperclassman. The barrier expands and traps the guy along with the pink-haired girl, leaving them with no way out. The upperclassman gets furious for being caught and yells that she had the audacity to look away during the fight. Our protagonist then joins his students and faces the upperclassman with his arms crossed and a victorious smile. The upperclassman tries to retaliate with a kick, but our protagonist is faster and hits her first with a punch. With the impact of the blow, the pink-haired girl groans in pain and is thrown backward. Soon after, she falls to the ground completely defeated, while our protagonist and Asahi watch the scene. The other upperclassmen watching are jaw dropped by the beating their colleagues took. Makoto, on the other hand, gives a satisfied smirk at the new recruit's performance. Asahi and the other female students celebrate their victory excitedly and sigh in relief. However, our protagonist interrupts them and says the fight isn't over yet. Suddenly, the barriers trapping the upperclassmen begin to move and float in the air. To everyone's surprise, the woman with glasses manages to break the magical prison using her own power. With a confident smile, she frees herself along with her partner, and the two return to the battle. Our protagonist then says he's relieved, as they are more capable than he thought. The woman with glasses comments on the rookie's arrogance, while her partner looks at her with a nervous expression. He then adds that despite the arrogance, the guy has the skills to back up his words. Makoto approaches the group and asks the gray-haired guy if he finally understands. The upperclassman then asks why the leader seems so proud, and Makoto replies that he was the one who found them, so he has every right to brag. Our protagonist looks at Makoto with a serious expression, while the unit leader seems to be enjoying the situation. With a smile, he extends his hand to the guy and says he's looking forward to working with him. Suddenly, the leader's wrist device starts beeping with an emergency alert. All the other upperclassmen also receive the same alert and go on high alert. The notification informs them of an angel sighting near Ariake, and everyone prepares for the mission. The scene then cuts to an urban area of the city, where the attack is taking place. Several civilians run in panic, trying to escape the threat that appeared out of nowhere. A woman trips and falls to the ground, while others flee desperately for their lives. Soon after, the suppression team arrives on the scene, and our protagonist and Asai observe the situation with serious expressions. The two look up at the sky and see a portal of light opening with several creatures emerging from it. From within the portal, an army of robotic-looking angels emerges, and one of them displays a sinister smile. The creatures advance in formation, preparing to attack the city and cause chaos. Faced with that mass appearance, Asahi comments in shock that there are 10 of them at once. The woman with glasses then turns to the group and excitedly yells that they're the first to arrive on the scene. However, the pink-haired girl interrupts her and points to something in the sky, seeming to have seen something strange. One of the angels points at them with a sinister smile, preparing to attack. The pink-haired girl recognizes the portal as the gate of divine descent. The other upperclassmen are terrified by the revelation and break into a cold sweat with fear. The other female student then yells that it's the gate that generates angels, and that its last appearance was at the end of the Edo period. Makoto then explains that according to records, within a week of its appearance, all humans in the city were devoured. The gray-haired guy punches his own hand in anger and wonders why this is appearing again of all times. Faced with the threat, all members of the suppression team get into combat stance. The other female student clenches her fists nervously but also with renewed determination. She then yells that she's finally become a regular member, and that this time she'll definitely prove her worth. Suddenly, Asai places a hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down. With a smile, she advises her to calm down, because if she gets too anxious, she'll end up getting taken out. The mention of her demise triggers a memory of Asahi's past life as Jean, who fought bravely against the angels. Back in the present, she gives a smile and comments that this situation brings back some memories. Our protagonist just gives a smirk and watches the scene with his arms crossed. Meanwhile, civilians continue to run in panic as angels fly freely through the city. Makoto grinds his teeth in anger and prepares to give orders to the team. With a shout, he orders the 3 rookies to handle the civilian evacuation while the upperclassmen take care of the angels. Our protagonist then asks if they're okay with that, since the threat is so great. The unit leader replies with confidence that they'll find a way to handle the situation. With his arms crossed, our protagonist agrees with the orders and says they're on their way. The scene then cuts to inside a shopping mall where chaos has erupted. Several civilians run desperately, trying to escape the angels that pursue them relentlessly. One of the fleeing civilians ends up tripping. The creature glares at him with a cruel look and prepares to deliver the final blow. The guy is terrified and in a cold sweat, unable to do anything to defend himself. The angel extends its hand to grab him, but something stops it just in time. Suddenly, a pink energy barrier appears and blocks the creature's attack. The angel gets furious for being interrupted and grinds its teeth in anger. With a swift movement, Asahi charges and hits the creature with her magic sword. Soon after, the creature counters with a golden energy blast from its hand. However, our protagonist dodges the energy blast with a swift and impressive move. He then charges towards the creature, ready for a counterattack, while Asahi also prepares. With a confident smile, the two position themselves side by side, wielding their magic swords. Meanwhile, the other female student creates a barrier to protect the fleeing civilians. With a shout, she tells everyone to run while she holds back the angels with her protection. The young woman then faces the enemies with a determined look, ready to give it her all. One of the angels ignores the barrier and chases a civilian who is running for his life. Someone then moves quickly. It was Asahi, who charges and attacks the angel with her magic sword, right in the head. head. At the same time, our protagonist also springs into action and leaps towards another creature. With a precise cut, he hits the enemy dead on, which falls to the ground, defeated. The former Demon King then wields his sword with a serious and determined look. Another angel tries to attack him from behind, but he defends with his energy blade. Asahai doesn't fall behind either, and with a powerful blow, she manages to defeat her opponent. The creature's head rolls on the ground, showing the warrior's strength. With a serious look, our protagonist positions himself for battle while Asahi watches him closely. The other female student is impressed by the perfect synergy of the two in combat. With that, our protagonist tells them to hurry up and clean up the rest because the subjugation team won't last much longer. Asahai then turns to the other female student and the two exchange a look of determination. The scene then cuts to the main battlefield, where Makoto and the other upperclassmen are down on the ground. The woman with glasses and the pink-haired girl are also defeated and exhausted. The gray-haired guy tries to get up but is attacked by one of the angels, which knocks him down again. From the sky, more and more angels continue to emerge from the portal endlessly. The pink-haired girl looks at the sky in despair and says there's no end to them. Suddenly, Makoto gets up and prepares for an area of effect attack with all his might. With a shout, he gathers two golden energy spheres in his hands. Soon after, he fires a powerful beam of light that hits several angels at once. The explosion covers the entire portal in smoke, showing the unit leader's overwhelming power. However, even after the attack, Makoto realizes that no matter how many they defeat, new angels keep appearing. Suddenly, he senses a strange presence and turns around, startled. From the sky, an angel dives at high speed towards the unit leader. However, our protagonist appears out of nowhere and lands a powerful punch on the creature. With a single blow, he defeats the angel, which shatters into pieces in the air. Makoto and the woman with glasses are shocked to see the guy appearing to help them. With a confident smile, our protagonist tells them to let him help in the battle. Makoto gets super excited and yells that they're back on the battlefield. The gray-haired guy is also relieved and says this is a huge help, as he was wishing for one more ally. The woman with glasses looks at the scene with a serious and thoughtful expression. She then looks at the portal in the sky and wonders how they're going to destroy that gate. Asahi turns to our protagonist and calls him by the name Dantirio. With a confident smile, the former Demon King replies for them to leave it to him. He then takes a step forward and prepares to show his true power. An overwhelming purple aura begins to emanate from his body as he concentrates. Suddenly, a helicopter appears in the sky, and a ladder drops from it right in front of our protagonist. Suddenly, soldiers emerge from it, leaving our protagonist completely confused. Before him, a squad of heavily armed soldiers appears, and one of them yells for the second assault unit to fall back. It turns out the order came from a mysterious man watching everything from his office, and he adds that he has already obtained permission to command the operation on site. With a completely psychopathic smile, the man lets out a sinister laugh and declares that from now on, it's time for a fun experiment.